What's the most out-of-touch thing you've heard a person say? During a break room discussion on how one of my coworkers was having to go on food stamps because the job didn't pay enough, the new CEO, who for the first and last time decided to have lunch in the break room, dropped this gem. "Yeah, I know what you mean. We had to let our second nanny go." When a guy on AITA was upset his wife was making him babysit their infant too much, so he and his mom told her there'd be no more going out. He said him going out all the time was different than her going out, and when asked for clarification he said because she's better at changing diapers and getting the baby to sleep. It truly blows my mind that there are morons out there who think taking care of their own children is babysitting. Had a friend in dental school who grew up in the rich suburbs north of Detroit. We were talking about traveling. She was going to Thailand for spring break, and she said I'd be surprised if most people hadn't traveled to at least 20 countries. I told her I'd be surprised if most people had ever left the US at all. I used to work for a minor aristocrat. Some advice he gave out, in absolute sincerity, over the years: don't take out a mortgage, whatever you do. Terrible things. You'll end up paying a lot more for your house, you know. The thing about a Bentley is that you have to have a crap car too. I mean, there are times when a Bentley just isn't appropriate and what you need is a crap car. Crap car later turned out to be an expensive Alfa Romeo, and a Bentley to be several Bentleys, recommending the Ritz in London as a place for regular after-work drinks. I don't know how anyone survives on their company's salary alone. His salary was more than £300,000, $500,000 a year. My old neighbors didn't see the point of taking their kids, 3 and 6/7, to the playground nearby or anywhere for that matter, because he found it boring. The two kids spent every day in the house in front of the TV. Why would we go to the playground? I find it boring. He wasn't a great father and didn't see them often. I don't know why they would be so upset regarding my children, aged 11, 9 and 6 at the time, struggling to understand their father's murder, ETA, as I wrote in a more emotional state than I think I realized at the time. The police think it was a home invasion gone wrong. He wasn't up to anything bad, just not very fatherly. We had been divorced for 2 years, so the whole situation was just too new for the kids in general. I was 16 when I lost my dad. Our family is very, very close, and I wasn't expecting, so I was hit pretty hard. A month after his death, I was picking up a book at a friend's house, but my friend wasn't home, so her mother was the one to give me the book. She asked how was my family, and I said we were trying to get back on our feet. Her exact words were, "Oh, don't worry, honey. Give it a year or two, and you even forget your father ever existed." I was so shocked. She continued saying that first we forget their voices, and then their faces. I left her house feeling numb, sad and scared that I would forget my father. I was telling my boss how proud I was my husband got a new job. He's legally blind, and she proceeds to tell me that she wishes she had a disability, so she could just get handed a job. Had to walk away F4OM that one. I grew up super poor, like going days without eating kinda poor, all because my mom legit thought welfare was only for unwed black mothers. She never called anybody to confirm that, never asked around. She wouldn't apply for reduced school lunches either because that was ghetto. Imagine being so racist and buying into the welfare queen lie so hard that you let your own children starve. I was talking to this college student, and he said I am thinking about taking a gap year between my junior and senior year. If I do take a gap year, I am gonna take that time and travel. I don't understand why people take a year off to work. A year ago we were putting offers on houses, and our budget was low compared to what was available, and the realtor would ask, "Well, can't your parents help pitch in?" LOL, which makes me think a lot of people are lucky enough for their parents to help with the home buying process, but yeah, not us. My dad just died about a month ago. My company gave me 4 days unpaid off. I was really close to my father, so this was hard for me to deal with. My paycheck was enough to pay bills, but I had to buy my groceries on credit card to get by. My boss's brother-in-law died the following week. All he talks about is how hard this is on his wife. Between the stress of her brother dying, and the reno on their $1 million cabin, he's taking his whole family to Hawaii for 10 days this month to try to deal with their grief. Meanwhile, I'm pricing urns out on Amazon to try to save money, trying to sell my dad's tools to help my mom, working full-time and taking care of a toddler. We're human beings and the sun is the sun. How can it be bad for you? I don't think anything that's natural can be bad for you. Gwyneth Paltrow, 2013. Let's say I get bitten by a rattlesnake. I shouldn't be worried, the venom's natural, isn't it? Just a note, she was saying this because she thought that the sun couldn't possibly be bad for you. 15 minutes of sun a day should be healthy for anyone. Pure, radioactive sunlight. No SPF. My boss told me that the leasing of our company car is ending, and I could buy it for really cheap if I want it. Really cheap meant 20,000 euros for him. He pays me 750 euros a month. I'm still in training, that's why it's so little, and I live on my own, and have a car, so basically I'd have to work about 2 years for this really cheap car without spending a cent on anything. To preface for all the people trying to give me mortgage advice from the US, I live in Canada, and our mortgage rules are extremely different. Thank you for the suggestions, but you cannot expect your home buying methods to work in a different country. Me conversing with a patient about the housing market when I was like 22, houses are so expensive it's going to be difficult to get into the market in a few years. This was some years ago, patient whose husband inherited a lot of money and a business, and now they're wealthy AF. Rent is the same as a mortgage though. Me, it's the down payment we need, patient, why don't you just get your parents to give you the down payment? That's what ours did and we paid them back. Me, my dad is dead, and my mom has a rare illness that placed her on long-term disability, patient. Well, me, not everybody has the same opportunities in life, patient. A woman told me that having to show her Costco membership card upon entering the building was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And she was dead serious. I was on my 6th day of a migraine, and would love to have the worst event of my life to have been showing a membership card. 4 of my millennials friends and I rented a house from a boomer some years ago. After signing the lease, boomer turns to us and asks why we aren't buying homes and flipping them like he does. This was before the mega boom in housing prices, and we explained that we wouldn't be renting if we had buying house money. I've met many people that thought the US government paid immigrants a boatload of money when they first moved to the US, and that's how they could afford to own convenience stores and stuff. It's literally the exact opposite. People spend an insane amount of money to get here. More often than not, it's almost everything they have. A male friend and I were walking around his city when I noticed this guy watching me intensely and following us. We're about to get into this elevator, and the guy quickly jumps in before us and make prolonged eye contact with me. So I hold us back from getting in the elevator, and the guy gets off and walks away. Tell my friend about it, and he tells me how hurt he felt that I robbed him of his ability, as a man, to protect me. The fact that he thought I should ignore my own sense of self preservation, just to soothe his own ego, was one of the most out-of-touch things I heard in a while. My grandfather told me to buy a house in the neighborhood adjacent to his because they are almost as nice as his neighborhood, but very affordable. The lowest priced house in that neighborhood currently sits at $695,000. I make about $70,000 a year. My grandfather died after some pretty egregious medical errors. My now ex-spouse said, when I was crying, "Old people die, that's how it is, get over it." That was the moment I knew I was 100% going to divorce him. Took a few more months to be brave enough to leave, but I did. I'm in more pain than you are because I was her husband. You have it so lucky. My stepdad. He had been dating my mom for a year and married her a month before she died. She married him for health insurance because she lost hers, and this is what he said to me, her daughter of 22 years just a few days after she died. I had an employer who was a treasure trove for these. His mom was bad too. The one that sticks out the most was personal. For context, right before work a person told me my friend had died, suicide. I had also had COVID 2 weeks-ish before this. Anyway, I was at work, told a friend what happened. Nosy boss and mom wanted to know because they were eavesdropping. Told them. Later on I was told to work on an order for a customer. I was okay and started working on it. These were chains for a funeral home, for urn necklaces. As I'm working on them, the boss came up to me and said, "The more people die the more money they make, and the more they buy, so the more money we make. It's a good thing people die of COVID." I was so shocked I didn't say anything. My co-worker near me was also too shocked to say anything. I still think about it to this day. Slavery in America was good for the slaves. Bonus points for me since it's so out of touch that it's also racist. As a history teacher, I was in shock that an American could think this. Senator Braun saying that individual states should be able to ban interracial marriage as a criticism of KBJ's judicial philosophy. FYI, she's a black woman married to a white man. Also, you don't have dyslexia. Dyslexia has the root dys, which means not, you wouldn't be able to read. The school staff member, who was literally testing me on my abilities relating to how to approach my IEP accommodations. 40 hours a week leaves you a ton of free time. I'm biracial and a person of color lol. Well, I also have a very white sounding name. I had some really pretty friends in high school, blonde with light eyes, nice girls. One day one literally looked at me and told me that I would be a lot prettier and fit in with them more if I had blonde hair and blue eyes, and less tan skin. I genuinely didn't know how to respond to that, and if I'm being honest still wouldn't if it happened again today. There are no poor people in Singapore. First-year uni student in the UK from Singapore, who was so rich she bought an entirely new wardrobe every academic year, because she couldn't be bothered packing her suitcases when she went home for the summer. If you're depressed, just get up and go for a walk. LOL, the depression is what's stopping me from doing exactly that, Brenda, but thanks, I'm cured. Lawn parties are insociable, my English teacher. I don't know how anyone survives here on less than $40,000. Wealthy doctor eating lunch from Whole Foods in a room full of her own employees who are all paid less than $40,000. When she said this, I was eating canned spaghetti that I had bought on sale. We should never raise taxes on the rich. I'm not used to sacrificing things, so if you make me take only one vacation a year it would be worse than if you made a poor person have less. Because they are used to not having things already. Student in a college finance course. Money defines how successful you are. Lesbians didn't exist back then. I overheard a woman telling her friends there is no reason for anyone to be in poverty. She proceeded to say there is always help to better oneself, or get a loan for college. She herself has $125,000 in college debt and thinks that is okay and anyone can afford to do it. Talk about out of touch. After seeing a homeless person with an anything helps sign, or you could get a job, like everyone else, the woman saying this had never had a job other than marrying rich. People complaining about homeless people having phones, as if the costs of one phone and monthly rent are remotely comparable. Surfin' USA is my favorite Beatles song. Can't they all just ask their parents for money? Aren't everyone's parents rich? What do you mean they said no? I'm paying to be here, so I shouldn't have to follow any rules. Overheard at a ski resort. I used to work with this guy whose family wasn't just rich, but like internationally known to be wealthy. He was stressed one day at the office and over lunch I asked him what was the issue. Turns out finding a chef to cater for your family on an island off the coast of Australia wasn't an easy task even if you were able to fly them out on the family Lear. No, I didn't really have much to add to that one, sitting there with my brown bag sandwich. I know more about everything right now than you will ever learn in your life coming from my, at the time, stepdad, who was a mid-30s AC tech. Whenever my depression would get really bad, my ex would say things like it's all in your head, stop choosing to be sad, it's not a choice. Was in a rehab facility, my Mormon mom came to visit and sat in on a group session with about 10 to 15 other patients detoxing from alcohol, painkillers, heroin, etc. One gentleman who identified as homeless and a heroin addict asked, "What am I supposed to do when I have the urge to use?" My mom raised her hand and said, in full confidence, "Whenever I feel sad I like to hop on the computer and do family history work. Family history work is my addiction. I think it'll work for you too." My mom has said many out-of-touch things, but hearing her tell a room full of recovering addicts that the solution to addiction is family history work takes the cake. My American aunt said we're not originally a nation of immigrants. My ancestors arrived here as colonists to create a country where there wasn't one yet. Money can't buy happiness. To a certain extent, yes, it absolutely can. They should take a look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I still think that if you don't like where you live, just move. Sure, it's definitely going to be easy to pack all 3 of my kids' bedrooms, find and hire a moving company, find a job, sell my house, research the cost of living and state laws, buy another house, pay for another company to move my work vehicle across country, drive or buy airfare for 4 people, buy a new house, and settle in. Yeah, super easy. That people absolutely remove anything nice from their lives if they mention they can't buy a house. Yes, of course, I will remove any and all pleasure from my life so I can sit in a house with nothing in it. Canceling the odd subscription will not get you a house deposit. Talking to my mom about my kids and saving for college. Mom tells me that college isn't much more expensive now than it was in the 90s when I went. LOL, okay mom. A friend of mine was going to propose to his girlfriend and he was venting about picking out a ring and how expensive the options were. A coworker, who was born into a fairly wealthy family, piped up, "Well, can't you just pick out of your family's jewels?" My BF's brother saying that my BF raised me out of poverty like he was some sort of saint. My BF didn't raise me out of poverty. He helped. He bought me groceries, he gave me motivation, but I'm the one who worked hard, updated my resumes, got a higher paying job, and saved up my money to get a better car and apartment. He didn't do that for me because we'd only just started dating. BF's brother is now literally bringing up his GF from poverty 3 years later. It's just a dog. When my little sweet Papillon died completely unexpectedly due to vet error. I cannot tell you how many times I heard that during the course of my mourning. The Russian army is there to liberate Ukraine and reunite it with God. My far-right Christian nationalist father. Brother came home after grandma died. Well, that is less money on Christmas, what a shame. My manager, we live in Europe, why don't you go to the USA for vacation? You're still young without kids, it's only 2.5k, you know, that's almost a full month of income before any taxes. I've mentioned this before, last full day of church camp. Cleaning the cabin. Rich girl, on the verge of tears while holding a broom. I don't know how to do this, the maid sweeps at home. I did it for her. My mother has always been a slob and a hoarder, so no one did it at my home, but somehow I figured it out. Vladimir Putin compares himself to J.K. Rowling and says he's being cancelled. My dad's explanation for why you should shift to a riskier investment strategy as you get closer to retirement. Me, I think that's the exact opposite of what you're supposed to do. People need that money to live off of in retirement. Dad, well, you have your pension to live off. Social security checks are just bonus money you can play around with. Me, neutral face. Worked with a girl whose dad bought her a $2 million condo. I signed my new lease and one of my friends asked about AC, and it didn't have central air. She responded, who doesn't have AC in their house? If you don't like it here, just leave. I don't like here because it's housing, healthcare, food, gas is so expensive. You think I can afford to move to a different country? I can't even afford a plane ticket. For context, I had a job that had me working 60 plus HRS a week with only 2 days off every other week. Hour-long commute each way, low pay, the whole shebang. This job put a huge drain on my mental health. I was already depressed and started having suicidal thoughts. Confessed this to my boyfriend one night because I was getting scared. I'd been having these thoughts and feelings for 2 months. His input, oh, everyone hates their job. That's normal, me wanting to drive myself into a tree every day is normal? Okay. Good to know. The bar rescue guy saying a hungry dog is an obedient dog. No. A hungry dog will find food any way it can. For context, I am Ukrainian. The day Russia invaded Ukraine, one of my coworkers told me they are so close together, why doesn't Ukraine just join Russia? And well, if the Ukrainians defend themselves, the bloodshed is on their hands. In the same conversation, knowing I'm an Ukrainian and have family there. If you can't afford gas, just buy a Tesla because nothing says in touch as buying a whole new vehicle because gas is expensive. If someone doesn't have enough money, they should just get a better job. The media saying inflation is a good thing, and that we should be fine with not being able to afford daily life. I was complaining about NYC's rental prices to a very well-off aunt of mine. She suggested I should just buy an apartment in Manhattan instead. This happened months ago, and I still think about it daily. My cousin's boyfriend once said that a person's life is meaning if they don't have fertility. He said to live is to have offspring, and that not reproducing is merely surviving, not living. Funnily enough, at the time that was said, I 27/M recently got a vasectomy, but nobody in the family, aside my mom and dad, knew that. I worked retail and lived with my senior citizen parents. How much time do you have? Having a loan from the bank is stupid. Back in my day, people just went without if they didn't have the cash to buy a home. Grandma, as if one of the first mortgage crisis wasn't in the 1930s, she was born in 1950. Probably the person who asked me where my favorite skiing spot was, stating theirs is Aspen. We live in Texas, I can't afford to travel anywhere there's skiing, let alone pay to actually do it. They straight up did not understand that. An ex-boyfriend whose family had moved to a tax shelter island, so they wouldn't have to pay inheritance tax. He was the firstborn, so he was set to inherit the estate. He once said to me that rich people shouldn't have to pay taxes because they work hard. My landlord called a monthly rent increase of over $1,000 marginal. I got a small loan of $1 million from my father Trump. If your children are gay, we would just have to tell them that's not something we nor the Catholic Church believe in. My out-of-touch family, and the moment I realized I was done. 2 women walking in MT Baker neighborhood. One says, having a second home during the pandemic really has made things easier. During the war in Syria, A bunch of boomers asking why those people would destroy their country like that, and now the refugees coming to Canada are gonna do the same to our country. This coming from people that have never actually experienced anything close to war or civil unrest. They have no clue how war works. Our sorry excuse for a prime minister for many reasons, but most recently comparing the Ukrainian situation to Brexit. Britons, like Ukrainians, had the instinct to choose freedom. That the war in Ukraine doesn't matter because it's on the other side of the world and it doesn't affect us. If you're broke in 202x, that's on you condescending cryptopricks. The Pope just said he was surprised military spending has increased during the war with Russia. If you are sick you should go to the doctor, living in the US so not so much with the ability to see a DR. Are we going to trust science or our own eyes? You're depressed because you're choosing to be unhappy. My parents, who both claim that they have depression themselves. Wearing a mask and getting vaccinated during a pandemic is exactly like being a Jew during the Holocaust. I am a stable genius. I once heard some boomers say college is basically free with all the scholarships they're giving out.